Speaking of carbon credits, let's just jump in right here. Prime Minister Davis, of course, has been talking about that and their benefits to the Bahamas, as you all know. It just might work out, though in a different way than he may have initially thought. While in New York, which is, of course, yesterday and perhaps still today, Prime Minister Davis, in a number of meetings related to climate change that the New York Times is putting on. But here's what happened yesterday, guys. The IMF managing director suggested that countries like the Bahamas can use their carbon credits, maybe not to pull in money, but to pay off debt, something that that is quite attractive to all of us, if we, especially Cassius loves to talk about the national debt and where it stands. Imagine being able to use those mounting carbon credits that the world owes, I guess, us money for, but use it to pay off debt. They in turn become money. Cassius, you jump in because that's your you know exactly how to talk about that as you've been doing.
Well, first of all, let me explain this carbon credit because I think many people who are watching us don't really understand how this thing called carbon credit. What is carbon credits? It was basically started by the World Bank some time back. However, carbon credits is basically what the industrial nations have agreed to put on industries. In other words, for every 1 ton of pollution you produce, you get 1 credit. So we give you 1 carbon credit for every 1 ton.
So if a ton?
So if your company is producing 5 tons and you only have 1 credit, then you're fined for the additional 4 tons of extra pollution. That fund then is therefore what these nations who, like the Bahamas, can pull from. You understand? However, what they're also saying is that if we can create industries within the Bahamas that can also pull carbon from the atmosphere and then we can have it certified by this international agency, then if we can produce our own ton of carbons, then we will get paid for that too. So you can do it as a personal project or as a company or as a country. However, right now you're looking at carbon credits. It was $2 a ton, now it's $6 a ton. They're saying that they want it to be $76 by 2025. However, that's a little shaky. The whole issue was to punish companies that are producing excessive amount of carbon in the atmosphere. However, it has been basically, it went into this money laundering and a money grab thing for a lot of major companies. And a lot of money is floating around in carbon credits now. However, where it's supposed to be going, it's not going right now. And so this is why they're trying to basically straighten it up. So, but what they're really saying is, see, the IMF, a lot of our debt is owed to the IMF. What the IMF will say is that, okay, we will now pull money from the fund and then we'll forgive your debt. So the money that are being fined from these major companies for the excessive amount of carbon will go to the IMF and they'll say, okay, that's 500 million, and instead of you paying the IMF will pull money from the fund. So that's the kind of system they're trying to create. You notice that in the article they say it is difficult, it is hard, it would keep pressuring us. In other words, it's not really crystallized as yet, it's not concrete as yet, but they're still trying to formulate how this can work. And so, but of course, the IMF is trying to put themselves in a position where they can get their money off the top instead of waiting for it to come from countries. And so, you know, they're a smart bunch of people. So that's how the whole system of carbon credit works. Hopefully we'll figure out how it all works for us. I mean, we don't produce that much excess carbon playing the game. However, we do have issues. We can, you know, if you're getting into solar, if you're getting into planting trees, if you could quantify that, then you could sell that as carbon credits. I think though also too, we have, I guess, we have more airplanes flying in our airspace than anywhere in the world. And I suspect that what we need to do is that all the emissions that are burned off in our airspace, we need to now go heavily after our air tax, because our space is being polluted not by us, but by airplanes flying over our airspace, burning off carbon and so on. And so that's something that we have to look at. I know right now I think the first PLP administration went and renegotiated the air tax. I think we need to go back to the drawing board because most of the air tax is being given to the United States. So the U.S. gets most of our air tax. Every country gets their own air tax except the Bahamas. That money goes to the United States. We only get about $5 million or so, and you know we could do $100 million easy every year for air tax. And so that is something we have to seriously look at. I think we need to go back to the negotiating table with the FAA and the United States government and say, listen, we want our money, we want our air tax because we got bills to pay.